Aye.
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 To the contrary, no. I declare that carried with 2 votes in opposition to recommendation B. Right, we come now to item number 10 on the agenda. Items 10 and 11 both deal with the adoption of bylaws that have been out for consultation, and I'm going to ask Councillor Linda Cooper, as Chair of the Regulatory Committee, to introduce both items, but we'll take them one at a time, obviously, and also to move the recommendation for item number 10, and I'll just ask for a seconder for that.
Could Councillor Newman, he was on the panel.
Councillor Newman, if you're happy to do that, I think you were on that committee as well.
I'm very happy to second on item 10.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Newman, and I'll ask Councillor Linda Cooper to introduce the item. Can I also note, I think we have, yes, I can see him, Glenn Wilcox from IMSB here as well for the 2 items, and I do want to thank the people that have been on those committees that have done the hard work there, and Glenn, and if I can single you out, you're a trooper in terms of the effort that you make and the work that you put into it on behalf of the IMSB, so thank you very much for that. So Linda to introduce, and then I have online Dean Yee and Paul Wilson, our officials dealing with this paper, and I'll ask them to make comments following Councillor Cooper's. Councillor Linda Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and yes, welcome to Glenn Wilcox, all the way from sunny Paihia. It doesn't look too sunny, but thank you, Glenn, for being able to join us. So this report represents the bylaw panel recommendations on public feedback and local board views on the proposal to amend the Stormwater Bylaw 2015, and the proposal was developed following a statutory bylaw review in 2020. The governing body adopted the statement of proposal for public notification on the 26th of August 2021, and it was publicly notified using all the available channels, or many available channels, as well as virtual representation to the Rural Advisory Panel. So we had 2 virtual drop-in have your say events, and so basically 79 people and organisations provided feedback, and 3 out of the 5 proposals received majority support. Most submitters supported proposal 1, 3 and 5. However, there was only or barely 50% support for 4, which was probably the most contentious, and I note Councillor Newman had his minority opposition to that, so I need to note that, and that was that people were not to have access to stormwater infrastructure, and that was a little bit contentious. But what I need to note is that there is an approvals process where people can use, for example, stormwater ponds for an activity, but it just requires an approvals process, because these are working sites and there's the health and safety for staff and the public to be considered. So what we got to, we recommended changes to the proposed bylaw in response to the matters raised, including amending proposal 4 on the ability to restrict parts of the stormwater network to prioritise public safety and include related information notes to clarify processes for approval, and just clarifying definitions and permitted activities in alignment with the unitary plan, and adding related information notes to clarify decision making for controls. We ask that the governing body approve the panel recommendations and adopt the amended stormwater bylaw in attachment C of the agenda report. But I absolutely want to thank Councillor Newman and IMSB member Wilcox for their intelligent and engaged contribution to the process. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper, and I'll just ask if Dean Yee or Paul Wilson would like to add anything to Councillor Cooper's comments. Dean, I see you online there.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, Councillor Cooper has covered the recommendations part, and just note that I'm from Healthy Waters Department, and we've been working with the bylaw panel, councillors and IMSB member Daniel Wilcox on this very closely, and I believe the recommendations and proposal will help our Healthy Waters operations and protecting the public stormwater network, as well as private stormwater systems that contribute to the wider Auckland network. So I think that's quite key in recognizing that. Paul, if you're online, did you want to comment on the infringement recommendations?
Or I missed that out.
Thank you, through your worship. I have nothing further to add. Happy to answer questions if needed.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we'll go to questions, and I have a question in the name of Councillor Tracy Mulholland. Tracy.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, team. I know that there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. I'm just wondering how we will go in terms of resourcing and the bylaw, the changes, and are the team already stretched? So that's a second question in relation to that, and how will that be managed? Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, team.
Thank you. So Dean, I'll come to you first in reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Healthy Waters Department, we operate and maintain the public stormwater network. So the bylaw helps with that already. And the bylaw was created first in 2015. So it's an ongoing piece of legal tool that we've been utilizing. In terms of resources, there is definitely resource limitations in what we can do in terms of operations. But I think as we develop more programs along with the amended bylaws, and we're looking at potentially seeing how we can inspect more areas that contribute to the public stormwater network, and then we have to go through resourcing processes within the department and through council, as well as our usual practices. I know in the development space, there's a lot of development going across Auckland, and the stormwater bylaw plays a part in that as well, especially vesting of public stormwater assets. So we have a development team that's regularly working with our regulatory services teams on development. So there are resourcing limitations, but we'll work through that internally with other staff and our people leaders as well.
Thanks. Supplementary, Your Worship?
Please go ahead.
Thanks. Just for clarity, and Dean, you know, I'm fully supportive, and thank you for your answer. What it raises for me is another question, and whilst Dean did give an answer, but I think what it says is there is potential risk for us, and maybe we do need to ask the question is, how do we secure additional resourcing so that putting this bylaw or the changes into place, that we can actually do the work? So Your Worship, you can take that as a comment, but I think really it is a question for our team to consider, and perhaps come back to me and other councillors. It's a reality check on the current situation, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll just double check whether officials, they can take it as a comment, or they can address it because it's raised in the question section. Any comment from Dean or Paul on that? Dean.
I think as an officer, I don't have further comments, but this was raised throughout the deliberation as well, and I believe Councillor Cooper, as chair of the regulatory committee, is also working closely with regulatory services as well on resourcing, enforcement and monitoring, and work around that compliance space.
And perhaps I can ask, I think Councillor Cooper's indicated that she'd like to comment on that.
Thank you. And following the presentation from our regulatory and compliance team to the governing body and the local board chairs, we had a paper to the regulatory committee outlining really re-adopting the approach that we use, and looking at ways to enhance and support our regulatory staff in doing their job, including employing more staff, some technology, different ways of looking at that, and that was adopted by the regulatory committee, re-adopted. Just noting there were a few people that did vote against that, but I think that is the issue here, is that we are working on it. We're very aware of that issue, and every bylaw hearing that we're getting feedback from the public and the local boards, and have concerns ourselves that we need to make sure that our staff are resourced properly, and we just have to do the best we can with what we've got, but there are opportunities to improve that. And also the other thing I failed to say, Mr Chair, is that we also recommended that staff prepare a schedule of infringement notices and fees so council can request the relevant minister to commence the process to make necessary regulations to prescribe infringement notices, and that will help our staff, because as we already know, we go from woe to go. We go from education, and then often what's left in between is nothing except going to court, and it's not worth taking someone to court for $100,000 to get $1,000 out of them. And so we need something in the interim that is more reasonable and something that will help our staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cooper, and I concur with that comment completely, and I've indicated to officers that if we can give political assistance to their request for infringements, we're very happy to do that. Education's important as a first step, but a court case, as you pointed out, that is expensive and time-consuming, when an infringement notice would be far more effective, you know, it's a no-brainer. But there has been resistance from government officials on that, so we need to continue to push on that and to support our officers at a political level if required. I have no further questions, so I'll come to comments if there are any comments. Reasonably straightforward.
I have comments.
Tracy, Councillor Monhollins, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Your Worship. That's all right. My name is Tracy. I'm good with it. Just with regards to this matter, I do want to comment to it. And I think what it raises for me is where we may be seen by the public as not able to implement the decisions that we make. So I don't know. I sort of question myself, does it make me look a bit foolish or us look a bit foolish? So what I'd like to think is that when we are revising budgets and reviewing budgets, and we do have to consider the current situation, perhaps we should be putting the money into these types of, sorry, I realise I've got my camera on. Maybe we should be putting the money or additional funds into doing this type of work. And whilst I understand that too, and I was in a network meeting the other night where people were complaining about rates, and I was saying, well, do you really understand the whole situation of how much is paid by through rates and other revenue sources? So I just really want to raise my concern on enabling us to be able to do the job that we need to do to support our people in Tamaki and to support these sensible bylaws that we have. So yeah, it's just awareness. I have to say it, otherwise I think we don't get anywhere.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no other comments unless Councillor Cooper wants to say anything in reply.
I wondered if Councillor Newman wanted to say something, because he did have a minority view on one of the items on option proposal 4, so I just wondered if he wanted that opportunity.
Councillor Newman, are you wanting to comment?
Yeah. Look. I mean, my minority position is just that, it's a minority position. I was outvoted on it, so I accept the majority view on it. But I just respond. I guess I respond to Councillor Mulholland by saying, look, I take on board what you said. My view in relation to this stormwater bylaw, it is primarily a bylaw which is helpful in terms of the management of the stormwater network, and the primary stakeholders, the developers and the consultants who are working in the context of planning and the delivery of stormwater infrastructure that will be vested. The key challenge here, Your Worship, in my view, is for the officers to provide clarity to the industry around practice notes for how the council would expect applicants to the council to be planning and designing the networks that will be delivered and vested, in particular what it means in relation to climate change values, mana whenua values, things like that. and that was a debate that I think was quite well canvassed in the hearing as well. So from my perspective, the key issue with respect to this bylaw is the ability to operationalise it by council in partnership with that particular constituency of stakeholders who will be the primary users of the services that the council provides in relation to stormwater services. And obviously people looking to develop need to ensure compliance with that. And so there is some more work that will need to be undertaken by council officers. They'll need to report back to the regulatory committee, having completed discussions with the development community to clarify these matters, hopefully in clear and intelligent practice notes to follow.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I have no other comments, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, no. I declare that carried, and once again, thanks to the panel members that worked on this. We come now to item number 11. Again,